you know. Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So
Okay,
that's for
this is.
cutting the video. Or
Oh,
for
I thought
Mhm.
that was the start, and you had something like a cool start. Okay.
Yeah.
You start now? Okay.
Mhm.
Alrighty, folks. We are back with another episode. This is the third episode. I'm very excited for this one. So, hair looking good, and we're both ready. I think, Chris, we have the same sort of hairstyle today. Did you notice that?
Oh yeah, I haven't
Take a look
noticed
at my
that.
hair.
Yeah.
And this is I'd say this is the first time in forever that I'm wearing this hairstyle. Do you think it suits me?
Really? I thought you were like.
Yeah. No, not really. You see this part? This is usually
Uh-huh.
here in the mid. You
Oh,
know what I'm
okay.
saying? That's
Well,
the
I
difference
tried
there.
to do mine in the middle, but it's not so good.
I think it's perfect. Looks very sleek. I like mine as well. It didn't answer my question though. Do you think it suits me?
Yeah, I like it.
She's a model, so her opinion matters to me a lot. You know what I'm saying? Okay, Chris. So we are going to get directly into the topic of the conversation today. And this video is going to be very informative because we'll discuss some ways you can understand fast speech. We are both non-native speakers, even though English is one of my first languages, but still I speak in Hindi, which is like the majority language in our country, night and day. Even when I'm talking to my friends or my family, I always talk in Hindi, and she talks in, you want to tell them
Spanish.
what language?
Yeah.
Spanish, Espanol is her native tongue, but we still come to a point where we understand fast speech. And I've got this so many times that I speak very fast. I'm gonna take it, and usually I take it as a compliment because I know I do. I am verbally fast. I'd say I am one of the fastest, like verbally fastest. I am one of the verbally fastest people that I know. And that's something that I sometimes try to work on because people have a hard time understanding me, especially my students. But I'd say this is who I am and this comes to me very naturally. So I want to ask this, Chris. Did you ever have a problem understanding my speech, or did you think that I speak a little bit too fast?
I don't think so. Like at the beginning, it was kind of difficult, but not for your speed, more because of maybe I was getting familiar with phrases and sentences, words. But I feel like you always speak in the right speed for for people like me. And I know when we are teaching, we have to slow our speaking. I naturally have slow speaking, even in Spanish. Um, but yeah, when we are like teaching our students, we have to like adjust our way of speaking just to be more clear for them.
But like I'd say you are one of those students who, obviously, most of my students like the way I speak. I like the way I speak, but they also tend to drop these comments here and there that, ma'am, you're speaking a little bit too fast for us, even though we want to get to a point where we are able to speak as fast as you. But right now we are in the nascent stage, and we have a hard time sometimes understanding what you say. But you are absolutely right. I give them the same reason. It is not really about the speed, but about my choice of vocabulary. And
Mm-hmm.
that is something that like differentiates me from a lot of speakers in my country and a lot of people that are in my industry teaching. But it's not very hard to understand someone if they're using the words that you know. It doesn't really matter what accent it comes in. The words in English do have different pronunciations, the British pronunciation, the American pronunciation. Sometimes there's the Indian and the Australian pronunciation. But if you heard the word before, you wouldn't have a lot of difficulty picking up the word because it is known to you. So this is like one of the first points that I want to drop in this video, is that if you want to understand fast speech, you better enlarge your vocabulary. When I was starting to become a good speaker, obviously, like a beautiful opportunity befell, and I made friends with some Americans, and it was the start of my journey. Everything was great. but it wasn't so easy. Speaking to native speakers has a lot of benefits, but the benefits do not come at the start of the journey. At the beginning, it feels more like a challenge, and especially for somebody who was not used to speaking in English. But I pulled that off, and after some time, I sort of realized that I'm naturally improving, and I acquired that accent, and I rightly use the word acquired. I say that I let the accent sink in. I've not really learned it, but if I hadn't gotten that opportunity, I would have learned it. That's also a fact. Point number one is you've got to have a good vocabulary. Your vocabulary bank is definitely going to help you understand fast speech, no matter how fast it is. So, what about native speakers, Chris? You live in the US, and I know you get to talk to the Native Americans quite a lot. Obviously, comparatively, now you talk to a lot of Americans than you used to when you were in Venezuela most of your life. So, how's that changed for you? Do you think you have difficulty understanding what they say sometimes, or is it just about the phrases that they use?
Yeah, like sometimes I feel like, yes, like for example, a few months ago we went to a restaurant and the server, the waiter,
Server is good.
yeah,
Waiter is also fine.
yeah, he was speaking so fast. Like, you know, maybe those phrases are like the same phrases they use always, but I don't go to restaurants like every day or every week, so I'm not familiar with some of their phrases, and if they do it fast, I cannot catch them. But it depends on your familiarity with phrases. Sometimes it's not just not only understanding the words, but more the intention or the context.
100%. She's talking about intonation here, and as I've mentioned a lot of times to my students in our personal lessons and my other YouTube, that intonation plays a huge role in like making or breaking the tone of the sentence. So you gotta keep up with the situation in which the conversation is taking place. Obviously, if it is a happy conversation, the chances are higher that the phrase used is something like jocular or fun or exciting or something like that. But then sometimes their native speakers use a lot of slang, and they use a lot of idioms and phrases. And sometimes because these idioms and phrases are not so literally meaning, you might be a bit perplexed. I mean, what do they mean by it? I understand that, but I think it is mostly about the connected speech pattern that native speakers use. If you speak with an accent, you naturally like connect the speech. You connect the words, merge the sounds, and it almost sounds like you just said one long word when in fact it was a whole sentence. And that is what most Americans do. For example, a nice cup of tea. They'd never say it like this. They'd always say a nice cup of tea. And somebody who's not used to listening to fast speech, or somebody who's not got an understanding of connected speech would actually be, you know what I'm saying, super perplexed. So like, what was that? What do you mean by that? Some people even might think that there was a long word that they then will have to go and Google. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's actually like a very fun journey understanding native speakers, the kind of lingo that they use. Obviously, native speakers all do not use the same kind of dialects. There are dialects in English as well, and the accents are also different. But it is really fun understanding them if you know that they use this tool of connected speech, wherein they mix up the sounds, they merge them together. You'll definitely find it easier to understand their speech. And bringing back her point, intonation is one of the most important things in understanding anybody in any context, that's for sure. And also listening, Chris, I think that has a huge role to play in understanding fast speech or understanding native speakers in general. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I can say that listening to podcasts or real life conversation is something that have been helping me not only understanding them more, but also sometimes I just say some phrases that I never practiced or learned when I was studying grammar. And it is because of this I don't know, like this way of learning similar to
Yes, the
how,
environment.
yeah, and how like little or children learn a language is something that you just also do.
Yes. And I think like that is the best way to learn a language is to immerse yourself into the process. You know what I'm saying? But many people come up to me like personally as well, and I know this is something that a lot of people struggle with, finding the right environment. They don't have a lot of people around with who they can
Mhm.
practice their English. And I'd say that I am no different. I am no exception. I don't have a lot of people around me, like in my inner circle, with who I can practice English conversations. But then like I said, a weird opportunity befell me, and I decided I was going to do it anyway. So I'm doing it, and so is Chris. But then the point about listening, I think listening is so important. It is so important. Obviously, I learned a lot of things early on because I used to speak to Americans firsthand, but that's not all about it. You got to maintain your language. It's not a one time thing, right? It's like you cannot learn everything in English and then you don't have to go back and look. It's like something that you have to renew every single day, unlearn a lot of things. So I think listening has played such a big role in helping me become a confident speaker. There are certain pronunciations that you'll only be able to do when you listen to it a bunch of times. You know what I'm saying? There's this word called sentence. Now, as an Indian, I would say sentence without the stress, in a monotone, without the accent. But over time, because I've heard this word at least a bazillion times, now it naturally comes to me and it comes out as sentence. I can also say sentence, but I think it's more natural for me to say sentence. Sentence. You know what I'm saying? So these are some things like the mouth movement, where to place your tongue, what to do with your lips, all of these things. You can learn it by watching videos. That's a great way of doing it. But then you cannot like rush the process or jumpstart the process. Would you agree with me? It takes time, doesn't it?
Mhm. Yeah, totally.
So, what kind of podcasts are you listening to? By the way, obviously, she's going to name our podcast first because naturally, this is going to be one of the best podcasts for learning English out there. And this is like my word, and you can take my word for it. We're working really hard to make this podcast as informative, as entertaining as possible for you guys. But then back to Chris. Yeah, Chris, what kind of podcasts are you listening to these days?
Yeah, so I started listening to a podcast from a model called Emily Ratajkowski.
Oh,
You know her?
yes. I know her face. I know her by face.
Yeah, so she has like an interview podcast where she sit with some famous people and just talk about different things. After that, I was listening to some motivational podcasts, the ones that are trending right now. But I
Mm.
was feeling like some of these conversations, some of those conversations were sometimes unreal or very, you know,
Very
like,
performative. Very
uh-huh, yeah,
performative.
yeah,
Right?
these people just want to look good, sound good, and say something to be portrayed as someone.
Mm. Perfect.
Yeah.
Or a
So,
certain way, or any certain way.
uh-huh, yeah. And then I found another podcast called, well, I we are going to add the name here if I find it.
Sure
Um,
thing.
yeah, but this one was more like two girls reading some Reddit stories, weird stories,
Mm-hmm.
and then they say some comments about it. And I think this helped me um, to like help me understanding how to answer certain questions or phrases because
For sure.
when I came, I feel like the first time someone said like "nice to meet you," I just was paralyzed. I didn't know no I had
Oh,
no phrases
you were a
coming
blank.
coming to my mind. So I knew that my problem was understanding, but also being able to have fast answers to these simple questions. So when I was listening to this podcast, I was also learning or like catching these phrases or answers, maybe some simple answers like totally 100%, like these phrases that some people can say just to avoid silent
Yes.
moments.
Awkward
Yeah,
silences, yes.
yeah. So and now just listening. I'm listening to some podcasts about. Um, I feel like they're not so good. Like they have like the worst mom from TikTok as an
Oh,
invitee, invite,
invitee.
inviting.
Somebody who
Uh,
comes over.
yeah.
Someone
So
who's invited, okay.
yeah, they had this girl from TikTok, and they were talking about some stupid things. But I am also trying to learn this natural language about
Hmm.
stupid things, not only
Mm,
motivational but also like real life conversations. Um,
absolutely.
and yeah, and that's the point, to be familiar with these phrases or like the
The daily use expressions.
yeah, exactly.
Yes, 100%. I think I couldn't emphasize the point more that it is the most important thing to learn in English is to be natural and to listen to some real life conversations. I do get it. A lot of people like listening to motivational videos, like a certain type of videos, maybe comedy shows. I'm like a big fan of comedy shows myself, so I'm not one to talk here. But then you've got to listen to real life conversations. That's one. And number two, which is like the final point of the discussion, and I'd say the main point of the discussion is that you've got to have some output. Speak it out, word it out, grinding every single day. And looking back, I am not able to remember like a single day where I haven't given at least 2 to 3 hours to English, be it reading, listening, or speaking. Usually, I do a combination of these three, and I'm also gradually including a bit of writing into my daily routine. But that's secondary. If you're looking to become a good speaker, you're looking to perfect your speaking skills, then you've got to start speaking. Nothing else is going to make you a good speaker. So to give you a summary, we discussed a lot of things in this video, but a short recap would be enlarging your vocabulary so that when a native speaker uses a word, you at least know what it means and you'll be able to guess the sound, take my word for it. And then understanding connected speech, plus the point that Chris put up, intonation has a big role to play. And the sooner you understand it, the sooner you learn some things about intonation, the better you'll be. And the final point is obviously practice. We couldn't miss that out. Alrighty, Chris, I think we had a really productive conversation here. We kept it fun, casual. Obviously, there's a lot of friendly vibe between us because we love each other. And at the same time, we got a lot out. We've given a bunch of good information. And I've been teaching English for quite some time at this point, and I've seen people develop their communication skills following just these few tips that we've discussed in this video. And if you do the same, I guarantee you'll see results within a month or two, but you got to stay consistent. I think that's something that goes without saying.
Yeah, totally.
Alrighty. So let's finish this off with a promise that we are going to make better videos every week, but we need your support in this. We'd love for you to drop your comments, your likes, and subscribe to this channel because that's our motivation. That's like you talking to us and telling us that you want us to keep going forward in this. Alrighty, Chris. Gonna see you again next time, and bye bye, guys.
Bye.